have 6 resolutions for adoption on unanticipated revenue as part of my office's end-of-the-year bookkeeping that involve funds that weren't included in your initial budget last year because we didn't know at the time they would be received. Approval is needed to comply with Florida Statutes 129. The first resolution deals with $166,664 we received from the Florida Department of State for payment of expenses incurred in the Armory Historic Preservation Project. The money was put into an account for County Commission buildings. The second resolution deals with $9,846 received from the State of Florida Division of Emergency Management for payment of expenses relative to the response and recovery efforts during Hurricane Hermine. That money was put into mosquito control, machinery, and equipment. The third resolution deals with $20,000 received from the Florida Department of Health for the payment of expenses relative to the Zika virus response effort. That money was put into mosquito control pesticides. The fourth resolution deals with $99,767 received from the Florida Division of Emergency Management for payment of expenses relative to debris cleanup and recovery efforts during Hurricane Hermine. That money was put into solid waste, machinery, and equipment. The fifth resolution deals with $75,000 received from the Florida Division of Economic Opportunity for the payment of expenses relative to the Highway 98 Corridor Development Grant. That money was put into County Commission Professional Services. And the sixth resolution deals with $975,000 received from the Florida Division of Emergency Management and $25,000 from the Florida Association of Counties Trust for the payment of expenses relative to the hazard mitigation and land acquisition of lots 1 through 6 of South Shoal at Alligator Point. And we put that into County Commission land account. All of this is things that came before you during the year, grants or monies that just were not in the budget at that time. You had already approved all of the expenses for them, but we have to have these resolutions as a part of our budget packets for the auditors.
Pleasure of the board.
I make a motion that we pass all the resolutions that she announced, 6 of them, or 6 of them.
Yes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Massey. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you. Any other questions or anything for me this morning?
Any other comments from the board? Thank you, Ms. Marshall.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda will be Mr. Mike Cooper, Weems CEO report.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have a light agenda for you today. Just a couple updates. One, Craig and I did attend the roundtable with the EOC and the Sheriff's Office and the other county departments. I think it went very well. I think there was, as Commissioner Smokey relayed, there was a lot of understanding or misunderstandings that were clarified. It was kind of ironic because CMS has asked for our policies to be changed. They gave us 4 pages of additions they want in our policy. So our policy was going to have to be upgraded anyway. So it kind of came around at the same time. So we'll have a policy that will allow us some more flexibility in coordinating with the county, but also meeting all of the CMS and the ACA requirements that we're required to follow as well. So that policy should be completed by the CMS regulations go into effect November 15th, so it'll be in the next month. So next update is on the generator. We did, as you'll recall, we're going to repair the old one now. The repairs are extensive. They have ordered the parts. The parts are due to be shipped next week. And so by the next time we meet, I should have a good idea of when that project will be completed. But they had to order parts in from God knows where. So beyond that, I have your financials for August, the month ending August. The main things to note in there, August was, as it usually is a down revenue month for us. It did produce a positive bottom line for the month of $18,000. That's on the income statement. The balance sheet, I'm just going to skip to the bottom and then I'll just talk briefly about what's in the meat of it. But as you can see, our total days cash on hand was reduced a little bit down to 26.6, primarily because the payday happened, I believe it was either the last day of the month or the day right before the last day. So we had an outflow of cash of about $160,000 right at the end of the month. Hopefully that will rebound in September. I do believe that revenue will rebound just from my visual of what's going on at the hospital. Revenue will rebound in September as well. What I would, as far as the rest of the balance sheet, there's some interesting things if you really study the balance sheet. And I want to give a lot of kudos to Jordan Fulkerson. Hopefully in the next month or two, I'm going to start having him come up and do the financials for you. I wanted him to be very, very confident in, and familiar with what is in there before he was given the reports. But he is going through account by account and reconciling back to not only the prior year, but prior years. And so what you will see, there's some changes in some of these accounts. The overall strength of the balance sheet is not changing dramatically, but the numbers are changing a little bit. And I'll just give you one example. If you look at long-term liabilities, fiscal year end 2016, it was $1.35 million, and year end or month end August, it's $1 million. So our long-term liabilities have gone down about $300,000. Now, normally you would see that occur by paying off those long-term liabilities, so your cash would go down as well. But really, it's just a matter of him reconciling those accounts. And if you'll notice that where that came from is, if you look at our fund balance at year end last year, it was $3.59 million, and now it's at $3.87 million. So as opposed to our assets being reduced for those liabilities to go down, it was actually an increase in the overall value of the organization. So that is that's a good thing, and it comes through Jordan's hard work. I mean, and I mean hard work. He was working Sunday on reconciling another GL account. So I give a lot of kudos to him. He's done a really good job on that. So there will probably be a couple more adjustments, but the hope is that when we start our fiscal year, at least accounting-wise, our fiscal year 10-1, all of this will have been reconciled, and all of it will be as true a numbers as you can possibly have. So, and that's pretty much all I have. You can see our collections are still trending upwards. So our billing company is just still doing a good job. And that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Comments from the board?
One comment, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. Mr. Cooper, why had the amount owed to TMH jumped from $463 to $549?
I talked to Jordan about that. That's one of those reconciliations. What we had on the books and what they had on the books, plus there was a crossover of a payment that was made to them that was not in their books yet.
Okay.
That was one of the
So is it-
reconciliations.
Is this the amount that we owe TMH? $549,344?
I believe it's less than that right now.
Okay.
There was one payment that we made that they had not included in their books at this time. He and I actually talked about that account yesterday, so that's why it's so familiar to me.
Okay, and I just want to clear something up. On your total liabilities at the end of 2016 was $2,405,509. And now your total liabilities back in July, if I'm looking at it right, was, total liability, $1,992,700. And at the end of August, it was $2,067,452. So, I mean, we're not as good as what it looks like it is. So, we're still $2 million.
Well, I mean, you're never going to get rid of your long-term debt liabilities. That's not going to happen. And I think the important number is, well, it goes down to that current ratio number, but the number that's important is that where that fund balance is, because that is what is net of your liabilities to your assets. So I think we're in much better financial shape than we were at the end of the last fiscal year, because the liabilities have gone down further than the assets have gone down.
But wouldn't you agree that those liabilities, it still needs to look better than what it does?
Well, I would like to see that current ratio at over 3. It's at 2.8 right now. I want to see it at over 3, but, I think we're making some progress.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Cooper, on your generator,
Yes, sir.
by fixing the old one, you don't have to go through all them changes, do you?
No, there will be no remediation required by the state if we just fix it. It's a normal repair, and so we won't have to rewire the transfer switches or anything else. So,
But they still gonna check it to make sure everything all right?
oh, yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments from the board? Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you.
Next will be Miss Amy Ham, Board of Adjustment report.
Moving things around, getting you set up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This morning, we have a recommendation for approval. It was unanimous. We had some concerns. I'll go ahead and read what the consideration was. It's a consideration of a request for a variance for the construction of a dwelling 24 feet within the 50-foot critical habitat zone and to place 686 square feet of field to meet the critical habitat zone setback for the aerobic waste treatment system. This will require a DEP and Corps permit. The property is described as Lot 25, Block 88, Unit 5, 328 Nedley Street, St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. The request was submitted by Garlic Environmental Agency. Dan Garlic, Patrick Bradell was the applicant. We had some concern. There's a policy within our comprehensive plan. It's policy 1.2C, and it calls for a 2-to-1 ratio when you fill wetlands where you have to mitigate. And without having a DEP or Corps permit, we don't know those mitigation strategies. So at the very minimum, I would request a tabling until we know if there's any kind of mitigation to those wetlands.
You want it tabled?
At this time, I think that would, the Board of Adjustments, they approved it but without the mitigation strategy, there should be a .032 acre wetland that would be mitigated to fill those .016. And right now, we don't have a DEP or Corps permit to show any kind of strategy of how those wetlands would be mitigated.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to table this item.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next would be Ms. Amy Ham, Planning and Zoning Report.
Okay. In our critical shoreline applications, there was a recommendation for approval. It was unanimous. It was a consideration of a request to construct a single-family residential dock located at Lot 1, Tract 42, East End Gulf Beaches, 1331 East Gulf Beach Drive, St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. The proposed elevated walkway for the dock will be an 81-foot by 4-foot connecting to a 494-foot by 4-foot dock connecting to a 26 by 6 terminal platform containing two 10 by 20 boat lifts located on each side of the terminal platform. The total square footage of the dock will be 2,132 square feet. The applicant has their DEP and Corps permits. Request was submitted by Garlic Environmental Agency for Derek and Elizabeth Walker. They have a house that is located on an adjacent lot that connects to the lot where this dock will be going. Here's a location map. And it shows their house is on Lot 6, which is right here, and their dock is going on the highlighted portion. And
So this house sits on two lots?
they have a, if you'll notice right here in the yellow box, that's where their house is located, and they own this property as well. And they want their dock on, they have access through that lot.
So the dock would be going where the blue outline is,
Yes, sir.
which is the lot that the house is sitting on?
No, sir, the lot, that is Lot 1, and their house is on Lot 6. This'll have minimal area. They do have an area that was planned and permitted by DEP and Corps that they could put a house there. It's very tight, it's very limited, so they do have a house here. But they do have the option of putting a house, but they do own the house on Lot 6.
Let me ask something, Amy.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. This permitting, I'm looking at it, this permitting goes all the way back to 2012.
Yes, ma'am,
12?
their DEP and Corps permit, their DEP permit is good until November 30th of this year. And they
Okay.
have the option of getting an extension. Their Corps permit ends March 22nd of 18. So they're still within the rights of their,
Okay.
they're not expired. And DEP, they could get they are working on an extension.
Okay.
Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Mhm.
Amy, I'd like to ask a question. Just so I can make sure I'm looking at this right, the length of that is, the platform is to cover all the wetlands, so they're not,
Yeah, this
Correct.
shows the 81-foot by 4-foot. It's going over wetlands to connect to the dock. And the dock that's over open waters is 494 square feet. And at the end, they have a 6 by 26 platform. And then on this diagram, it shows that they have two 10 by 20 boat lifts on either side of the dock there.
okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
Number 2, we have a recommendation for approval. It will be contingent upon receiving the Army Corps of Engineer permit. It was unanimous. It's a consideration of a request to construct a single-family residential dock located at Lot 19, Windjammer Village, 1723 Kingfisher Road, St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. The proposed access walkway to the dock will be 245 feet by 4 feet with a 6 by 26 terminal platform and a 10 by 20 uncovered boat lift. Approval will be contingent upon DEP and Corps permits. I believe they do have their DEP permit. Request submitted by Dan Garlick, Environmental Agency, for Shirley Richardson, and there is a house on the property.
Any questions from the board? Pleasure of the board.
I'd make a motion to approve.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a second?
I second it with the, you contingent on
Oh,
those?
yes, definitely. That's the way it's laid out. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I second it.
We have a motion on the floor, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, number 3, there's a recommendation for approval. It is also contingent upon receiving the Army Corps of Engineer permit, and it was unanimous. The consideration of a request to construct a single-family residential dock located at Lot 2, Block N, Unit 3, which is at 1534 Alligator Drive, Alligator Point, Franklin County, Florida. The proposed access walkway for the dock will be 350 feet by 4 feet with a 8 by 20 covered terminal platform and a 12.5 by 30 foot covered boat slip with a lift and a 12.5 by 20 foot uncovered boat lift. Total square footage of the dock will be 2,185 square feet. They have their DEP permit. It will be contingent upon the Army Corps of Engineer permit. Request was submitted by David Keith, Docks for Less, agent for Randall Admonson, and there is a house on an adjacent piece of property.
Up on the Gulf side.
Yes, ma'am. It's, here's a location map. It shows the house on, the lot on the Gulf side, and they own the property that has catty corner on the harbor side.
Mhm.
Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Massey. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, we have a recommendation for approval contingent upon receiving the Army Corps of Engineer permit, and it was unanimous. Consideration of a request to construct a single-family residential dock located at Lot 4, Block C, St. James Island Park, 2824 U.S. Highway 98 East, St. James, Franklin County, Florida. The proposed access walkway for the dock will be 190 feet by 4 feet with a 6 by 20 terminal platform and a 4 by 16 walkway with a 2 foot by 24 foot finger pier. Applicant has DEP permit and will be contingent upon receiving the Army Corps of Engineer permit. Request submitted by Larry Joe Colson, A1 Quality Docks, agent for Michael and Heather Waldrop, and there is a permitted house on the property.
Okay, that's part of those St. Joe lots out there.
It's St. James,
Mhm.
yes,
But it's part of those what we call the St. Joe lots out there that we
okay.
Did years ago. Motion to approve.
Okay.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Massey. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, number 5, this item was tabled at the Planning and Zoning meeting. We're waiting for DEP and Corps to come up with a consent order for this dock. The dock was built, it was permitted. There was a mishap within our office, and it was approved. It stated it was approved. What happened was James Campagna brought in Lot 1, which is the first item that we saw, and then he brought in Lot 2. Lot 1 went through Planning and Zoning in 2013 for approval. Those dates was transposed onto the Lot 2 as well. So in doing that, that permit was issued in May. So the dock got permitted, they started building, there was some issues, and there's a stop work order on it. In the meantime, we found out we were aware that there was no Planning and Zoning or Board of County Commissioners approval. So they was going through Planning and Zoning to make sure those approvals got done. There was questions concerning whether they met their riparian right lines. So we had the owner do a riparian right line survey. So we're waiting on those DEP approvals and Corps approvals. So Planning and Zoning will pick this up back in November when they have all of their proper items. But I just wanted to make you aware, that this item was tabled. But basically, the proper DEP approvals would need to be submitted to determine what the county would be approving in this line with what is currently being constructed. There was a 3-2 vote being to table. The consideration was a request to construct a single-family residential dock located at Lot 2, Track 42, Gulf Beaches, 1333 East Gulf Beach Drive, St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. The proposed access walkway will be 490 feet by 4 feet with a 12 by 15 terminal platform and one 10 by 20 uncovered boat lift. Total square footage of the dock will be 2,340 square feet. Customer has DEP and Corps permits. We're just waiting on the consent order for the changes that would be required to be made. It was submitted by Mark Plummer. He's the owner, and the house has been permitted. And there's a stop work order on that one as well.
Pleasure of the board.
You're asking for it to be tabled?
It's recommended this item to be tabled.
Okay, I'll make a
Yes.
motion that we table.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Okay.
Is that the end of the P and Z meet?
No, sir.
Okay.
We have a few more items. We have a rezoning and land use. We have a recommendation for approval for a public hearing. It was a 4-1 vote. Bless you. Consideration of a request for a land use change from residential to commercial and a rezoning from R1 single-family residential to C2 commercial business on property described as Lot 2, Block 6, Unit 1, Lanark Village, Franklin County, Florida. Request submitted by Cliff Butler, agent for Joseph Butler 2006 Irrevocable Trust. And we have an area here. This is the, it's a rectangular lot that they're asking, and it's not with a part of the special district of Lanark Village. And it's adjoining to property here that is already zoned C2 commercial business. I believe I have the zoning.
I make a motion that we take it to a public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Number 7, we have a sketch plat approval. Recommended approval unanimously. It's a consideration of a request for sketch plat approval of a one-lot subdivision called Preston's Place, also known as lots 18 and 19, Windjammer Village of St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. Request submitted by Shirley Ann Richardson, the applicant.
They're basically taking 2 lots and making it one.
Yes, sir. We've seen probably about 4 or 5 of these in the last couple of years, and they're basically taking lots 19 and 18 and making it a one-lot subdivision. They may have 2 acres, but they are now going to be bound by a 1-unit subdivision where they can only place 1 in there.
So the house that's there would be the only house that
Yes,
exists there.
that's correct.
Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, I think that's all.